In Lesson 4 or 5, we're going to take a look at equivalent fractions. So, what are equivalent fractions? Equivalent fractions are two or more fractions that reduce or simplify to the same fraction. And a fraction is in simplest form when the only common factor of the numerator and denominator is 1. So there's no number other than 1 that goes into both numbers in the fraction. That means it is fully simplified or fully reduced, and it is in simplest form. So pause the video and copy that down before moving on to the next example. Okay, so let's take a look at some equivalent fractions. We're going to start with the fraction 6 over 9. Okay, we're going to write three fractions that are equivalent to that. So first we're just going to multiply the top number and the bottom number by 2. So 6 times 2 is 12 and 9 times 2 is 18. Whatever you do to one part of a fraction, like the top or the bottom, you have to do to the other part as well. Otherwise, you've changed what the fraction equals, and that's no good. Now let's try coming up with another equivalent fraction. So this time, we've already multiplied by 2, so now we're going to multiply by 3. 6 times 3 is 18, and 9 times 3 is 27. And one more time, let's go ahead and divide this time, because 6 and 9 do have a common factor. 3 goes into both of them. So we're going to divide 6 by 3 to get 2, and 9 by 3 to get 3. So we have three equivalent fractions. Our first fraction, 6/9, is equivalent to 12/18. It is also equivalent to 18 over 27. And finally, it's equivalent to 2/3. Okay, so those are three equivalent fractions to 6 over 9. They all will reduce down to the same fraction, which happens to be 2/3, because there's no number other than 1 that goes into both 2 and 3. So pause the video and fill those in if you need before moving on to the next example. Actually, here what they're going to do first, before moving on, is have you try two quick checks. So you're going to just write two fractions that are equivalent to each, not three like they did in the example. So just come up with two other fractions, either multiplying the top and bottom by the same number, or you can divide the top and bottom by the same number in example A, and come up with two fractions that are equivalent to 4/10. In quick check 1B, you're going to come up with two fractions that are equivalent to 5 over 8. However, there's no common factor other than 1 that goes into 5 and 8. So you will have to find two equivalent fractions by multiplying 5 and 8 by the same number to get your equivalent fractions. So pause and try those, and when you're ready, move on to the next page. Okay, now we're going to simplify fractions. And you're going to want to simplify using the GCF, the greatest common factor. You can use any common factor, that'll work too, but if you use the greatest common factor, then you'll be done in one step. So list all the factors of 16 and 40. I'm going to make pockets because I think it's just easier. So 1 and 16, 2 and 8, and 4 and 4. Do the same with 40. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 3 won't go in, 4 goes in 10 times, 5 goes in 8 times, and that's it. So my common factors are 1, 2, 4, and 8, which means that the greatest common factor in both of these is 8. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce 16 over 40 by 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2, and 40 divided by 8 is 5. So simplest form is 2/5. Now let's say you didn't go ahead and find the GCF right away. That's fine. Let's say I did 16 over 40 and I said, oh, 2 goes into both of these. So let's divide both by 2. I get 8 over 20. Do these numbers have anything in common? Yes. 2 goes into both of these, or you could have said 4. It doesn't really matter. Let's say I only saw 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Is there anything other than 1 that goes into 4 and 10? Yes. 2 goes into both of these. So you just keep dividing, and you'll still wind up with the same answer as 2/5. So it's okay if you don't do the GCF. The GCF just helps you get there faster, but it's not wrong to just keep dividing by any common factor you see until you can't divide anymore. Okay, you'll wind up at the same answer. Pause the video and fill that in if you need to before moving on to another method. Another way we could do this is prime factorization. So let's go a little bit further. Okay. So a store stocks 12 types of blue pens, 6 types of black pens, and 2 types of red pens. In simplest form, what fraction of the types of pens are blue? All right. So let's figure some things out here. First, we're going to find the total number of pens to find the denominator. So we add up all the types, 12 and 6 and 2. So 12 and 6 makes 18, plus 2 more makes 20. And they want what type are blue. So I have 20 total pens, and how many are blue? 12 of them are blue. So now we can do this by prime factorization. 12 is, now prime factorization, remember, is your little trees. So let's do this for 12 and 20. 12 is 4 times 3. 3 doesn't break down, but 4 is 2 and 2. So 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. 20 is 4 times 5. 5 is prime, and 4 is not, so we break it down again. 2 and 2. So 2 and 2 and 5. So now what you can do is you can cross out any common factors. I should have used blue for this example, so I'm going to change that now. 2 and 2 are going to cancel each other out and leave you with 1. And same thing with the next 2's. Those are also going to cancel out and leave you with 1. And then you're left with the 3 and 5. So once you divide out your common factors or cross out any numbers that match, then what you're left with is the reduced fraction, 3/5. And again, if this seems weird, just go ahead and divide by what you know goes into both. I know 4 goes into both of these numbers, so 12 divided by 4 is 3, 20 divided by 4 is 5, and that can't reduce anymore. So again, either way you like, you'll get the same answer. Okay, so pause the video and fill that in before we move on to the next part. Okay, in the quick checks, you're going to model these after the second, third examples. 24 over 32, you want to write that in simplest form. Okay. So you can use either method to reduce this fraction. Okay, you can either just divide by the GCF, you can divide it by any common factor until you can't divide any further, or you can do the prime factorization if you like that way. As long as you reduce 24 over 32 until you can't reduce it anymore. Quick check 3, in simplest form, what fraction of the types of pens in example 3 are red pens? So you're going to set up the same type of fraction that we did for the blue pens. Okay, you're going to put your number over 20 because that was our total number of pens, but this time they want to do red pens, and there are 2 red pens. So you'll set up a new fraction, and then you'll reduce it into simplest form. Okay, so try those quick checks and we'll check your work in class.